All right. Before we go into the discussion or the talk, if anyone wishes to share anything from the meditation, please feel free to do so. Just unmute your microphones or put your hand up. Sure, exactly the protocol is there. All right. So what I wanted to discuss this evening, well, where I am, it's evening anyway, here in Portugal, is the precipitation of energies is one part, and the other part is the origin of the Buddha, the Christ, which goes way back in time, and which ties in a lot with my Hidden History of Humanity video and the book that goes with it, the Unveiling Genesis, Mysteries of the Root Races and Cycles. And the origin of both the Buddha and the Christ go right back to, well, you could say even the first solar system, but I'll explain. We'll start in Atlantis and work our way back and then forwards again. The Buddha was part of the previous evolution to this so-called earth chain that we are currently in now. This is going back literally billions of years in the planetary evolution, and was poised to take the third initiation before the so-called failure of the moon chain, which basically meant that the whole evolution was shut down, if you like, to use a colloquial term. And like many other moon chain souls, had to wait till the next earth chain evolution had evolved, and when it was ripe to come in and incarnate, and that happened with the Buddha and many other moon chain souls way back in the early sub-races of Atlantis, where the Buddha became part of what's known as the fourth ray ashram, the fourth ray being the major ray that rules over humanity, and was joined by the one who now holds the office of the Christ. He hasn't always been the Christ, of course, because it's an office that changes regularly, but was joined by that soul who is from earth chain humanity. So we have two streams of souls on this planet, earth chain humanity and moon chain humanity. The moon chain are far more developed in terms of the mental processes. We have many of those in the world today who dominate many affairs to do with politics and sciences and so forth. But the earth chain humanity have caught up considerably. And the Christ, the one who holds the office of the Christ at the moment, is the great representative of earth chain humanity. So these two brothers have been working closely with one another for a very, very long time. And the Buddha has all but left this planet, but comes back every Wesak festival and descends as far as the mental plane and precipitates energies to humanity, or through the hierarchy to humanity. He links up in a triangle with the Christ and the one we call Sanat Kumara, and they in turn broadcast those energies to the various departments within the hierarchy, the so-called Kohans or Chohans of the rays, the Masters of Wisdom, the initiates, disciples, and aspirants in the various ashrams, through to the various levels of humanity, the intelligentsia, and all the way through humanity at large to the other kingdoms. In fact, the animal, vegetable, and mineral kingdoms all get this radiated astrological and ray energies. Um, this is a continuous process, not just at full moons, but completely amplified at full moon festivals, and particularly the Taurus festival, because the Taurus festival is the Wesak is not only the festival of the Buddha, but also of opportunities for all the aspirants, disciples, and initiates in all the ashrams, which we're all part of or gravitating towards, to link up with the hierarchy more closely than any other time of the year, and to receive part of the plan of the annually amended, I like to use that phrase, planetary plan, as perceived by the hierarchy, as impulsed in Aries, fixed in Taurus, and distributed in the next festival, Gemini. That's why these first three festivals are the most important ones of the year. The very subjective nature of Aries, where that first impulse or magnetic pattern, if you like, is released, is received and grounded somewhat in the earth sign of Taurus by the hierarchy and all the members of the ashrams of the hierarchy. And then once, digested somewhat, is distributed in the next sign, Gemini, a sign of communication and distribution of ideas. So we are at that stage of fixing, of receiving that original impulse from Aries in a more tangible form, perhaps, and grasping as individuals and particularly as groups this new aspect of the plan as for this spiritual year, 2022 to 2023. So I'm just going to share my screen for a moment just to quickly touch on a couple of diagrams related to the earth chain stuff I was just mentioning. And there it is. On the left, this is a diagram from a treatise in Cosmic Fire by Alice Bailey of the entire solar system. It's quite a detailed diagram, but essentially in the triangle at the top, we have the sun, and we have all these other circles represent the planets, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and all the rest of the planets, including our Earth, which is down here. And these are called planetary schemes within the solar system. Each planet is not just a planet, it's a scheme of worlds. And here we have the Earth scheme down here. And here we have our current Earth chain, that little circle inside there. And there's a little black mark, which is the Earth itself within that. But that's blown up on the right-hand side of the screen. It's expanded. This is the Earth scheme. Okay, and this is the fourth chain of the Earth scheme. The third chain, or the moon chain, was before it, and that was the chain I was saying was an evolutionary failure. So we are playing catch up in this fourth chain of the Earth scheme. We have the fifth chain of evolution to go through after this, the sixth chain, the seventh chain, before the complete evolution is finished, or the complete purpose and plan for these very long cycles is completed. So that's why the science of initiation was instituted on this planet to force, to accelerate the evolution from stage or to reach the stage we should be at now, which is a long way off yet. So we have had some dramas, to say the least, in our planetary history. We could go into spending a whole day just talking about the moon chain and and rounds and chains and schemes and cycles within that. But for now, I'll direct you, if you have not seen my video, Hidden History of Humanity already, to check that out, and also the book that goes with that I mentioned before. Just while I'm here sharing the screen, here's a photo of the annual pilgrimage to the physical Wesak Valley, mainly by Tibetans and people who live in the local area, with a smattering of Westerners. But this takes place in the Gemini festival, because the Tibetan zodiac is a solar lunar zodiac, which is different to ours. So the Western spiritual celebration of Wesak is actually during Taurus. This physical attendance in the Wesak Valley itself, with Mount Kailash up here in the background, is in fact a month later. And that's when various documentaries have been shot about this festival at that time, in June. But the Wesak, spiritually speaking, is always held according to the Western tropical zodiac in Taurus. Some other artwork there, the full moon and the Wesak, well, a very idealized Wesak Valley. There are no trees up there, so it's somewhere. Maybe it's the idyllic Shambhala. And this photo here is from a documentary by an Australian filmmaker called Albert Falzon, who made a brilliant documentary about the Wesak, but unfortunately it's not available anymore. It's somewhere in the archives of Channel 7 in Australia, who won't release it for some unknown reason. So something to do with copyrights or something like that. But it's a real shame, because it's the best documentary that's even been done on Wesak. There's about a 1 or 2 minute clip from it that you can find on YouTube, but that's about all. Again, another artistic rendition of the Buddha's descent into the Wesak Valley, and the 5-pointed star, which the Masters of Wisdom create in the sacred ritual. And then, of course, you see the onlooking spectators in the physical and or the etheric looking on. Another picture, photograph of a recent Wesak festival gathering in June, in the Wesak Valley. Of course, Mount Kailash is reputedly the abode of Shiva, this pyramid-shaped mountain. And the Wesak Valley is around about 20,000, 22,000 feet. So it's quite high altitude up there. Okay, we'll come back to those graphics later. I'm just going to unshare the screen because it's a bit distracting for now, or maybe, yeah, I'll have to, because I have to go back to my notes. So just a moment. Just try and find my way around this menu here. I'm not used to it, so I'm looking for the unshare button. There it is, stop share. All right. Feel free to jump in and ask any questions or comments. The assistants to this webinar will see your question in the chat screen or something like that, and we can clarify things as we go along, basically. So so going back to Atlantis again, these two individuals, the Buddha and the Christ, met and probably knew each other in that life in a fourth ray ashram, and both took the third initiation in that ashram. And this suggests that the one who is the Christ now, who took that third degree initiation, moved very, very quickly in his evolution to reach that point, which the Buddha had reached but not taken back in the moon chain. And so that cemented their relationship, which was to last through all these many eons since Atlantis, but which will soon, as I said, there'll be a parting of the ways, and the Christ will take over the responsibility of the Buddha. Now, the Christ, in terms of the energy that this that we're developing in this so-called second solar system is the energy of love wisdom, and we're learning that particularly powerfully here on Earth. And the Buddha is said to embody more of the wisdom aspect of love wisdom, whilst the Christ embodies the love aspect. And I'm just going to read here a little quote from the Master DK about this enunciating what this wisdom aspect means. He says, the path of light, to which knowledge and wisdom are two aspects. The Buddha embodied in himself the force and activity of the third ray of active intelligence, of the third aspect of divinity, the divine cosmic principle of intelligence. By its fusion with the ray of our solar system, which is the second ray of love wisdom, he expressed perfectly the significance of light in matter, of the intelligence principle as found in form, and was the avatar who carried in himself the fully ripened seeds of the past solar system. And this reference to the past solar system pertains to the fact that we are in the second solar system of 3 solar systems. And this ties in with that moon chain Earth scheme stuff I just showed you in the previous diagram. That's the so-called second solar system, but there was a solar system before that which developed the intelligence principle. And this solar system, we're developing the love principle, and the next solar system, the third and final one, will be developing the will principle, spiritual will. Now, I have to keep glancing backwards and forwards here to my Zoom. Yes, someone said, are you holding a similar meditation in June? Yes, we have a timetable for the entire year for these webinars, which will be a day before the exact full moon in most cases. So, yeah, we'll be sticking to the same template format of the meditation. Hopefully it didn't go too fast today. I would value any feedback about that, so we can kind of refine our approach to this meditation. All right, so I think that's all the questions for now.
There are no questions yet, Philip.
Very good, thanks. It's handy to have that verbal, because I can't see when I'm glancing at my notes here. I can't see if anything's happening on Zoom, except the icon at the bottom of the screen lights up a bit. All right, so let's fast forward then to 2000 odd years ago, when the Master Jesus basically inaugurated the age of Pisces, the fishes. I will make you fishers of men. And so much symbolism in that, of course. And when Jesus was crucified, that was a symbol of the fourth initiation. It is in fact called the crucifixion. There are several names for it, and deeply symbolic on so many different levels. But the Master Jesus gave over his body for the last 3 years of his ministry to the one who holds the office of the Christ. And the Christ simultaneously took the 6th initiation as he overshadowed the Master Jesus in that life. So these Chohans, or custodians of the 7 rays, are in fact all 6th-degree initiates. Master Moya, the Master Kutumi, Master Hilarion, the Master Jesus, and so forth, they've all moved up to the 6th degree now. They weren't back then 2,000 years ago, but things can change very quickly in a relatively short period of time. And when the Christ returns in the not too distant future, in the next few decades, probably, as per my many newsletter speculations about that, he will take the seventh initiation. And this is something that is discussed in the book by Alice Bailey called The Rays and Initiations. Very, very deep stuff. Even apparently the masters themselves are still studying that material. So don't be too daunted if you find it some of it difficult to understand. But the Buddha himself has moved on to take the eighth initiation. I'm not going to go into what all these initiations mean today, but as essentially the Buddha and the Christ are still pretty much on a par with one another in terms of evolutionary status. And sometime in the next century, I imagine the Christ will take over the role of the Buddha, and the Wesak celebration every year where the Buddha returns will no longer be. There will still be a festival, most likely, but the Buddha will not be returning as he has been doing for thousands of years. Anyway, that's by the by in some ways, but an interesting thing to consider in terms of the evolution of the various strata and levels of the masters of wisdom and the ashrams. In fact, we are all gravitating towards one ashram or another, whether it's a second ray ashram, the third ray ashram. I think I've discussed with you before the various 7x7 ray colorings of the ashrams that make 49 ashrams with a master or a fourth degree initiate at the center of each one. The various of all the aspirants, disciples, and initiates in the world are gravitating towards and have penetrated one magnetic ring pass knot of each ashram, of one ashram or another, according to their level of spiritual advancement, all gravitating towards the center. And so we will all, in the next centuries, thousands of years, take on greater and greater spiritual responsibilities within these various ray ashrams, according to their colorings. We have the second ray ashram with its sub ray ashrams, the 2-3, which is very much to do with DK's ashram, 2-4, 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, and likewise all the other ones like 1-2, 1-3, 1-5. These sub ray colorings that encompass all of human activity, in the sciences, in the arts, in politics, you name it, medicine. All these ashrams are related to one activity or other, depending on the soul ray that dominates that ashram. All right, and so what we are participating in during Wesak is the interaction of many, many ashrams. When we talk about the ashram of the Christ, it is actually the 49 ashrams. So you can visualize the ashram of the Christ as a circle with 49 circles inside it. You could maybe even visualize the flower of life, beautiful design, as a symbol of the ashram of the Christ, of perfection and of beauty, and the most potent spiritual center on the planet, or one of the most potent. I guess Shambhala in some ways would be more potent from where the planetary plan is directed. And this, of course, brings me back to the regularly discussed theme of 2025, and the centennial meeting of the Masters of Wisdom, once a century, with Sanakumara and Shambhala, the council chamber of Shambhala, as it's called. Not all the masters are admitted to this, by the way, who are continually working on the planetary plan, overseeing, watching over humanity, not interfering in human free will. It must be a very difficult thing to do when we have such a willful, childish in many ways humanity that is continually putting itself in danger. But anyway, that's what they do. And this 2025, the last one was 1925, in between the two world wars. And at this one, as it's been expressed in the teachings in several places, is the year that is the meeting, the conclave, wherein the Masters of Wisdom will decide a date to externalize the ashrams and for the Christ to come back into a physical body once again and finish the work that was left unfinished 2,000 years ago in Palestine. And so we are on the cusp of that period right now, and that's why the forces of materialism are throwing everything they can at subverting or delaying that plan. And my guesstimate in various newsletters is around about 2080. Could be earlier. I might be wrong. It could be 2030, 35, or 40, depending on how quickly the hierarchy can muster their disciples and ashrams to incarnate and to be all set up, as it were, ready to go. The Masters of Wisdom will incarnate first, and the Christ will come after they've established themselves. And all eyes shall see him, as they say in the Bible, meaning that everyone will probably see him on television. Anyway, so after the Christ takes over the role of the Buddha, this will allow the Buddha to travel on his cosmic journey. When we all get to a stage of liberating ourselves on this planet, we have a choice to take this so-called 7 cosmic paths, one of which, the most common of which, is the path to Sirius. Most of humanity are children, if you like, spiritually speaking, of Sirius, and will begin a new evolution all over again in that star system. Okay, so now, I mentioned recently, I think it was the most recent Taurus newsletter, that the years 1965 to 2025 was the time of the so-called Forerunner, and leading up to 2025 Centennial Conclave of the Masters with Shambhala, but also the start of the 4th ray cycle, the major ray that rules over humanity, harmony through conflict, also known as the ray of art, beauty, and music. So that will come gradually into waxing strength after 2025, not bang on 2025. And that's another thing I would like to mention too. It's quite often misinterpreted that the hierarchy are going to return in 2025. They're only going to make a decision about when their return will happen in that year. So just to clarify that. The other thing to mention is that when the masters make their decision to go on their cosmic journey, this is called the decision initiation, the 6th degree. And they can choose to go on one of the 7 cosmic paths I just mentioned before. And the first cosmic path, in fact, is the path of Earth's service. And the fourth one is the path to Sirius, and there are other ones as well. Second path, the path of magnetic work that leads to the cosmic astral plane, apparently. The third path, the path for training for planetary logi, leads to the higher levels of the cosmic mental plane. So we're talking like planetary logos, the god of the planet. So that's quite an exalted path to choose. The fifth path, the ray path, leads to the cosmic mental plane. The sixth path, the path the Logos himself is on, leads to the cosmic Buddhic plane, beyond the mental plane. And the seventh path is the path of absolute sonship, leads to the cosmic mental plane. All this is discussed in A Treatise on Cosmic Fire and Rays and Initiations by Alice Bailey. Really mind-blowing stuff in many ways. To take in the magnitude and glimpse part of the planetary plan we've been presented through these books, through the Secret Doctrine of Blavatsky, through the Bailey books by Alice Bailey, the Blue books as we call them, and of course the Helena Roerich books, the Agni Yoga. Anyway. Catherine said, I believe under the British Empire, we are under London. Yes, Catherine, even though the British Empire has all but broken up, the subjective influence of that entity still remains. So Australia, Canada, South Africa, and many other countries still have that subjective link with the British Empire and with London, the capital. And also the second raised soul of the British Empire, the second raised soul of Britain that permeates the British Empire. So of course we can criticize all the mistakes the colonialists made in the past, and every country in Europe is guilty of that, from Portugal to Spain to Germany, the Dutch, all the French were all pretty ruthless colonialists in terms of plundering the treasures of other nations. But at the same time, there was a subjective influence going on throughout all that imperfect history that relates to essentially the expansion of consciousness for all of humanity. It was part of the plan. And so this planet is becoming far less scattered and far more one world, moving into a greater synthesis with quite rapidly, of course. So what I was going to about the decision initiation, before I got a little bit sidetracked there, 2025 is halfway through this 49-year cycle of decision. The last one was in 2001, 3 weeks after 9/11, which is very interesting timing. We can see how the forces of materialism work in outer world events to continually try to thwart the plans of hierarchy. So that the next 49-year cycle of decision will be in 2050. 2001 plus 49 equals 2050. But halfway between that is 2025, which is a valid halfway mark of the decision cycle of the Masters. So there's a whole bunch of stuff tied up in this date, 2025, which is rapidly approaching, of course. As far as this path to Sirius is concerned, I think a lot of us intuit and sense the energy of Sirius. There are many articles and videos about Sirius that we've all seen probably, and which usually a lot of people make a strong connection with. But of course, there are other paths. The path of Earth service is what, I don't know whether I mentioned it before, but it's on the Apollo Publishing logo on all my books. I'm not sure whether I've chosen that prematurely, way ahead of where when I might get to actually choose it, but anyway, I thought it pretty appropriate at the time. So, you know, the eternal spiritual question is, why are we here? What the hell are we doing here? We have created a hell too in some ways. Eventually, when a certain proportion of humanity have taken initiation, the planetary logos will be able to take a higher initiation, and the Earth itself will be transformed from a non-sacred planet to a sacred planet. Apparently, this has already happened subjectively already, but is yet to manifest outwardly. And this is our divine purpose. We ourselves within the body of the Logos. When that critical mass or a critical mass of liberated souls has been reached, then the purpose of planetary deity has been reached. This is millions of years away yet, of course, but when you look at these long-term cycles I discuss in my books and videos, and as we move into this Aquarian cycle, which is in fact a double Aquarian cycle, 25,000 year cycle of Aquarius, and a 2,160 year cycle of Aquarius, we have an opportunity to anchor firmly on this planet a station of light that will be safe harbor for humanity from the forces of materialism. And that's another thing that could be achieved, we're told, in the next 500 years. The first decade of Aquarius, within the first 720 years cycle of Aquarius. So many things are coming together at this point. The Masters of Wisdom returning to walk amongst humanity has not happened for millions of years. DK says this in Esoteric Psychology 1 or 2, I think. He uses that word millions, since they withdrew from the Atlantean conflict and were forced to work behind the scenes ever since then. So we are coming into an extraordinary period of liberation on this planet where the Masters of Wisdom will reappear. And right now, humanity is being tested severely in terms of its discrimination, its willpower, its ability to stand, its ability to discern right from wrong, maya from truth, all these things. So, someone's mentioned something here. Era is asking a few words about the New York Center. I'll direct you, I'll say a few words, but you may be best to read an essay on my website on the 5 planetary centers. You can find it fairly easily on some of the menus there, under Destiny of the Nations, or under Nations, I think it is, about the world 5 planetary centers, but also the centers of the USA per se. There are 2 essays there that you can read about. But essentially, the New York is, DK never gave the centers out of which one was what, but we've got a fairly good idea. We feel that New York is the Ajna Center, and I explain the reasons why in this essay, which is interesting because the new group of world servers, which is very much an expression of the UN, the United Nations, is based in New York City. And in a sense, DK's ashram is based in New York City. The energies of New York are 2-3, which is the energy of DK's ashram, 2 by the way. So New York is the throat center, however, of the USA, and functions as the throat center. but the Ajna center in terms of the 5 planetary centers. So just a little glimpse there. Heidi says, when the masters reappear, will they come as a baby like Jesus or already as an adult? Both. They will work through the normal incarnational processes. DK discusses this somewhere in the books. But some of them will also build a body of illusion, as it's called. And apparently the Christ is working on building a very, very specific particular body for his return. I just can't remember the Sanskrit word for that body of illusion. Something like Dharmakaya or something like that. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember it, but those will be the 2 methods of incarnation. Body, yeah, Maya Barupa, thank you, KO. Body of illusion, Maya being illusion, Barupa being body or vehicle. All right, thank you for that.
Philip, did you read the Heidi question?
Yes, I just answered it actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yes. What are the ways of incarnation? Yeah. So fascinating. The body of illusion. Jesus, when he took the next incarnation as Apollonius of Tyana in Rome. Fascinating story. If you read about that, his life, that was when he took the 5th initiation, the next lifetime after Jesus, and he had unfinished karma, if that's possible for a 5th degree, with the Romans since that time, and he would be seen simultaneously in different parts of the country at the same time of day, and was known to disappear in front of large crowds, much to their horror. So he was using a body of illusion to do that. He had was a master of wisdom. He was had mastered all aspects of the physical plane, of all the planes. A complete, fully qualified magician, so to speak, white magician. Gandalf the White, if you like. So, who are the new group of world servers? As I said, the Ajna center of the planetary logos, whatever we try and interpret that as, we all only have a vague meaning of what that really means. But the Ajna center, when you look at it, break it down, is composed of 2 major petals, the brow chakra as it's called, and within each of those petals are 48 petals each. And so I see the new group of world servers embodying all the different groups, the NGOs, and various organizations and so forth, embodying those petals of both sides. And the left petal relates to mind, or Venus, which rules the 5th ray of mind. And the right petal relates to intuition, which is Mercury, the ruler of that 4th ray we were talking about before. So you have a blending of mind and intuition, which is the purpose of what we're all trying to aim towards, but particularly developing intuition in this next 6 root rays. And here's the source of what I've mentioned several times in my newsletters, the divine hermaphrodite, the blending of Herma or Hermes, Mercury, with Aphrodite or Venus, intuition and mind. And the balance of that within the personal Ajna center, let alone the planetary Ajna center, has great power to visualize and to set intention So, and to see spiritually too, of course. So what are the prerequisites to be a consciously functioning member of the new group of world servers, whether you're in the esoteric community or in the, the more worldly community, if you like, out there in the business world or the science laboratories or in Congress? One, the heart center must be awakened and linked with the heart centers of at least 8 other people. 2, the head center must be in process of awakening and be able to hold the mind steady in the light. And 3, creative activity, which relates to the throat center, must be found along the lines of humanitarian, artistic, literary, philosophic, or scientific lines. Very interesting statement, this one. I've covered the new group of world servers a lot in many newsletters over the years. You can find them all on my website. Particularly if you go to the search by subject option on the menu. Also in a new book coming out, what is it? Destiny of the Nations, Volume 5. Where there is a section on the new group of world servers in there. These 3 books that are coming out, by the way, just giving a quick plug for that. In the next 2 weeks will be Soul Cycles of the 7 Rays, Volume 5, and Destiny of the Nations and Races, Volumes 4 and 5. The total of the last 3 or 4 years of writing and assorted essays, of newsletter writing, I should say, and various essays. Now, coming to the astrological forces of this full moon, and just before I do, something else is going on here. Another message. Wouldn't it be great, dynamic movement to meet all of us together in a location physically, one of the 5 centers to great group activity, which can be effective in the world today? Yes, indeed, Eros. And this is what the Aquarian Wisdom Center retreat in Portugal is all about. We want to create a international center where we can have ongoing conferences and webinars, seminars, meeting on the physical plane, into these prepared centers, as they were called in the meditation we did, prepared physical plane centers. And this is the whole aim of this organism that we've created, to establish that on a property somewhere in Portugal. And what was the other thing I was going to mention about that? Yeah, the physically meditating with other people at a conference or at a physical gathering is far more powerful, as most of us have experienced, than doing it online. But having said that, the online meditations are very powerful too. But the physical plane, that's more etheric, I suppose, the online, whereas the physical plane location is physical. So, all right then, moving on to what I was going to say about the astrology, is that the full moon is, and this is an eclipse, of course, a so-called blood moon eclipse. It's a super moon as well, because the moon is about 7 to 10% closer to the Earth than it otherwise would be. So it looks much bigger. So don't forget to look out your windows tonight. And in the States particularly, there's going to be very good viewing, apparently, to see the copper red color of this so-called blood moon. At various times. I can't remember which times you'll have to look it up on the internet, but it's been widely advertised in newspapers and so forth. But what you have with Taurus is the mother of illumination. Which is kind of paradoxical in a sense, given that Taurus is called the bull, but it's a very feminine sign in many ways. You know, the moon, which is the feminine archetype, is exalted in Taurus and reflects the light of the full moon, of the sun at the full moon. Mother of illumination, because Taurus is about the gathering of knowledge and transforming it into wisdom. And here again, we have the wisdom aspect of the Buddha that I was referring to before. And which is a blend of knowledge and life experience, I guess you could say. So the light that comes through Taurus is reflected in the Scorpio moon, the position of the moon in Scorpio opposite. So Wesak Taurus full moon periods can be quite challenging because we have this intense light that we invoke deliberately in our meditations that comes into our system, into our various vehicles, particularly the astral body, which Scorpio, a water sign, rules over, and stirs stuff up, you know, stuff that we haven't resolved, unresolved emotions related to the past and all that kind of stuff, our desire nature in general. Scorpio is a sign of initiation. In fact, it's a major sign that rules humanity too. And within Scorpio are these testings and trials for initiation, particularly the second degree initiation, over which Scorpio generically rules. So we always have to consider the opposite sign when we consider any full moon period, because the moon is in fact opposite to the sun. This is a solar festival, of course. The sun is in Taurus, the moon at the full moon is in Scorpio. It's in Scorpio now, of course. It'll be in late Scorpio as the sun will be in late Taurus at the exact full moon in about 9 hours time or something like that. And by the way, you know, the 2.5 days either side of the exact full moon encompasses the entire full moon period. So don't drop your guard or your spiritual tension once the full moon has gone. You'll find that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be strong, and you may get caught out. You may drop your guard in some ways. It's one of the most common times that we all get caught out with ourselves by not being vigilant within our personalities, and by how can I say it, allowing negative energies into our system. So do bear that in mind. But also right on the hour preceding the full moon, if you can wake up, depending on what time zone you're in, is the most potent. And to sound the great invocation, smack bang on the exact time of the full moon. So for those of us in Portugal and the universal time zone, GMT time zone, tomorrow will be, let me see, 5:14. So if you get up at 4:14, an hour before, then you might be able to catch it. But don't worry if you can't. It's all good in terms of when you can do your meditation for the day. Ira is talking about her personal astrology. I don't deal with personal astrology here on these webinars. Sorry, Ira. We're looking at a bigger picture here. So be much better for you to address that if you want to get a consultation with any astrologer or myself. Just got a time reminder here. We're a bit past an hour and 15 minutes. We'll probably wrap it up in the next 5 minutes or so. So we're talking about the Taurus Scorpio polarity. And when that light gets shone into the darkness of our lower self, because we all have varying degrees of unredeemed, unresolved darkness that we carry, of dark matter, if you like. It stirs up the underworld of Scorpio, ruled by Pluto. Pluto is the co-ruler of Scorpio. And Pluto's job is to transform and regenerate that stuff, to in fact bring it up to the surface. If you read about the ancient myth of Pluto, he comes to the surface and wears an invisible, I should say, helmet. And that's how he works, invisibly. So here is the kind of the polarity of Taurus Scorpio, how that intense, brilliant light shines into the darkness and makes visible that which needs to be redeemed and seen and healed. That's why Taurus full moon periods can be challenging, long story short. And it can bring about a purging within our personality vehicles. And if we are conscious of the importance of this festival, we invoke the energies far more powerfully. Hence, they will impact upon our various bodies accordingly. So Wesak brings about a manifestation of the planetary purpose and plan through the graded ranks of hierarchy, the triangle of Sanatkumara, Buddha and the Christ, the assembled masters, their ashrams, disciples, initiates, etc., etc. And I'm just going to finish off by sharing my screen again. And show you a couple of these other diagrams. Where is that? There it is. The precipitation of energies coming through that toolbar there, down to the bottom. The passage of the 7 rays from the Great Bear, Sirius and the Pleiades triangle, through the 7 stars of the Little Bear, through the gateway of our sun, our solar logos, and the 7 rays being distributed by the various vehicles of the rays, the planets in our solar system, through the signs of the zodiac to our Earth. So very, very briefly there. These diagrams have been in my various newsletters over the years, so you can copy and save them to your computer if you want to. And this one here, the transmission of rays that I showed you before through the zodiac signs, and ruling these lines here showing the Darjeeling, for instance, ruled by Scorpio. Being transmitted, these rays being transmitted through the sign of Scorpio to Darjeeling, ruled by Scorpio, the seat, in fact, of the Masters of Wisdom, who are just located physically not too far away, around here, or some of them anyway. So there is the kind of practical way of seeing how the energies precipitate, where they originate, how they get here, and what effects they can have. And the more we know and understand that, the better we can be more effective in our visualization, in our group visualizations, in meditation, in directing energy through these centers to the various geographical areas that are encompassed by those centers. All right, I'll stop sharing that and come back to my notes.
Philip, you have a question from Monica.
Very good. I've finished what I was going to go through anyway. So Monica Petroni, was it? Yeah. What about the eclipse line conjunct with Algol, the star? Well, it can have negative effects in the traditional sense of Algol. It's got a fearsome reputation. I I don't know. We'll see. One of the key factors in this full moon is a T-square between the sun and moon that falls on Saturn in Aquarius. And that is a tough one. Whenever you have Saturn, the Lord of Karma, involved in a full moon so powerfully like that, it can be very challenging. Saturn represents the universal law and how those universal laws are translated into earthly laws. And Aquarius, of course, is the cycle that we're going through, that we're about to enter into. So I can't really elaborate too much on that. You'll find other astrologers have probably expanded on that. If you Google full moon, with Algol, you'll probably find some article by someone who shed more light on that. So, any other comments before we wrap it up? We're not in a hurry, by the way, but there are other meditation meetings tonight, lots of Wesak parties, so to speak. Well, thanks very much for coming, everyone, and sharing in this. Don't forget, we run a donations system, so you can find that link on our website. And look forward to seeing you all again next month, and participate in this World Service meditation work. So thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you later. And we'll leave this open for 5 minutes so people can make their comments in the chat column.